Hey Reddit, I've never been one for status symbols. Fancy suits, luxury purses, cars with unpronounceable names, none of that appealed to me. What mattered was creating something that belonged to me. Something no one could take, belittle, or ignore. I never voiced it, but every choice I made since I was 17 was driven by how my family treated me. Like I was a disappointment before I even had a shot. It all began at a family gathering just after college. I'd chosen a different path, studying hospitality management when my family insisted anything short of law or medicine was a squandered education. I shared my dream of climbing the ranks, maybe running my own hotel someday. My sister Allison burst into laughter, nearly spilling her drink. Mom sighed, muttering I was throwing away my potential. Dad avoided my gaze and switched topics. That night lingered with me for years. I worked relentlessly. Started as a receptionist at a modest hotel. I cleaned rooms when staff was short, folded linens on late shifts, and mastered every detail of hotel operations. A decade later, I owned my first boutique hotel. That grew to 3, then 10. Eventually, I bought a failing national chain and transformed it completely. Now, I lead a privately owned hotel empire with over 30 locations across the country. Silently, intentionally, without ever telling my family. I stayed under the radar. No social media, no glossy magazine features, nothing to catch their attention. It wasn't about secrecy. It was about protecting my peace. I didn't want their judgments tainting what I'd built. If they thought I was ordinary, so be it. Then came my niece's birthday at a high-end restaurant in one of my hotels, though my family was unaware of my ownership. The venue had just been revamped with luxury upgrades, and I'd overseen every detail from the cocktail menu to the decor. My niece, Allison's daughter, invited me, probably out of duty. I considered skipping it but decided to attend quietly. After all, it was family, and I missed her. I wore a simple black dress and a well-tailored but unbranded jacket. My hair was pulled into a neat bun, nothing ostentatious. I arrived on foot, my driver parking discreetly elsewhere. As I neared the entrance, I saw Allison and my parents inside, standing by the host stand. When I stepped in, Allison turned, her eyes narrowing. She moved to block my path to the dining area. We only want accomplished people here. She smirked, arms crossed like a sentinel. I froze. Excuse me? This place is too upscale for you, she said, gesturing as if she owned it. We're keeping this event refined. Try a diner nearby that suits your budget. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I glanced past her and saw Mom whispering to Dad. He looked away. My niece hadn't arrived yet. Allison still barred my way when the head of security, Marcus, approached, his face lighting up with a warm grin. "Madam CEO, your usual table." His voice carried and the room went still. Everything stopped. Allison's jaw dropped. Mom paled. Dad's expression blanked like his mind had stalled. I didn't look at them. I smiled at Marcus. "Thank you. I'll be joining a private event in the main hall. Could you tell the chef I'll have the Chardonnay from last week?" "Of course, madam." I walked past Allison, still frozen, and entered the dining area like I owned it. Because I did. Every light fixture, every handcrafted rug, every dish was chosen under my direction. I no longer craved their approval, but watching them squirm, that felt better than I'd anticipated. The meal was tense. My niece rushed over and hugged me, thrilled I'd come. She was the only one oblivious to the awkwardness. Mom stayed silent, barely eating. Dad attempted small talk, but his unease was palpable. Allison sat rigidly, her eyes flicking between me and the staff, clearly grappling with the fact that the woman she'd belittled was the one running the show. At one point, she asked if I'd booked a table or if they just let randoms sit at CEO spots now. I smiled. "I always have a table here and everywhere else." That's when Mom finally spoke. "How long have you been doing this?" "Doing what, Mom?" "Owning hotels, managing places like this." I wiped my mouth with a napkin. "About 7 years, more or less. Why didn't you tell us?" she asked, genuinely confused. "You just vanished." "Because every time I shared my ambitions, you laughed or told me to aim higher. So I stopped sharing. I built them instead." That silenced the table again. My niece looked puzzled but smiled at me anyway. The rest of the dinner passed smoothly. I stayed for cake and photos, hugged my niece goodbye, and nodded politely to the others. Allison said nothing. Mom looked like she'd aged overnight. I left with my head held high. Marcus opened the door and wished me good night. The valet brought my car and I stepped in feeling more empowered than ever. But I knew it wasn't over. The next morning, Allison texted, "We need to talk." Families don't keep secrets like this. I didn't respond. Hours later, Dad called. When I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail saying they were stunned but proud, suggesting we talk over dinner. I ignored it. Then came Allison's email, a long, meandering pitch asking if I'd invest in her new wellness center idea. She framed it like we were allies, as if we'd always supported each other. That's when I realized they weren't just embarrassed. They were scrambling. They wanted a piece of my success. And I wasn't sure I could forgive years of dismissal just because the tables had turned. But before I could decide, the media caught wind of something unexpected. My identity as the hotel chain's owner leaked, and everything exploded. I hadn't planned for the article. I didn't seek the attention. But someone, maybe a supplier, maybe a board member angling for favor, tipped off a major business blog. The headline read, "The Quiet Empress of Hospitality. Meet the woman behind the elite hotel chain you've never heard of." The piece was glowing, almost too much so. It chronicled my journey from desk clerk to CEO, the renovations I led, the A-list partnerships I'd secured discreetly. It even included an old photo of me at a property opening, in an oversized blazer, smiling nervously. I hadn't seen that image in years. The story went viral. Within a day, every relative I hadn't spoken to in a decade was messaging me. Second cousins, distant uncles, people who'd called me a failure or mocked me while I waited tables in college now wanted to reconnect. My phone filled with hollow apologies and fake enthusiasm. But the worst came from my immediate family. Mom called 3 times that morning, each voicemail more emotionally charged than the last. She demanded to know why I'd shut them out, how I could humiliate them by revealing my success without crediting the family that raised me, as if they'd raised me with support instead of scorn. Dad sent a text, "Dinner Sunday." No excuses. Then Allison, she showed up. In person, I was in the executive suite of one of my Miami properties when my assistant buzzed me. "There's a woman here, says she's your sister, she's persistent." I nearly sent security. But curiosity won. I led Allison up. She walked in like she owned the place. The irony wasn't lost on me. Hair styled, designer bag on her arm, heels impractical for any business meeting. She sat without asking. "So this is real, you actually made it." I kept my face neutral. "I didn't invite you here, Allison." She leaned forward. "Look, I know we've had our issues, but this is amazing. You're amazing, and I've been thinking. What if we partnered up?" I blinked. "Partnered up? I've been planning a luxury wellness retreat brand, high-end. Meditation, detox programs, unplugged vibes. You've got the resources. I've got the ideas. We could rule the market." I stared at her like she was a stranger. "Allison, do you recall when I said I wanted to run a hotel? How you laughed so hard you nearly choked? You said I'd end up folding towels at a fitness center. That was ages ago. People change. I was young, sure, but you can't hold that against me forever." I tilted my head. "This isn't about holding grudges, it's about patterns. You dismissed me when I was building. Now that I've succeeded, you want to share." "That's not change, that's opportunism," she huffed. "So what, you're above us now?" "No, I've always been me, you just never saw it." She glanced around, visibly rattled. "You don't get what it's like for the rest of us. Mom and Dad are mortified. You humiliated them in front of everyone." I laughed, not warmly. "They humiliated themselves. I gave them a chance to know me years ago. They didn't care. I don't owe them a show just because the spotlight's on." Allison stood abruptly. "Fine, enjoy your empire. Don't come crying when you realize family's all you have left." She stormed out without another word. I sat there, gazing out the window. For the first time in years, I felt something odd, not sorrow, not guilt. Relief. They'd finally admitted what they'd always expected, that their love, respect, and support would only come if I proved useful. Now that I had, they wanted to act like nothing happened. But it had. I skipped the Sunday dinner. Dad sent a lengthy email afterward, lecturing me like I was still a teenager. I archived it. Mom left a tearful voicemail. I didn't reply. A week later, I hosted a media event at one of my new international properties. The press called me the elusive hotel mogul. I gave one interview. When asked about my family, I said, "They showed me rejection can be motivation." It went viral. Suddenly, I wasn't just a business success. I became a symbol for those who'd outgrown toxic families. People wrote to me, grateful for proving success could be quiet, self-earned, and unapologetic. As for my niece, she was the only one who reached out sincerely. She sent a message. "I had no idea. You're incredible. Teach me everything." So I did. I mentored her, gave her a role at one of my properties, and watched her thrive without her mother's influence. Years passed. My parents never apologized. Allison opened her wellness center with a loan from Dad's savings. It folded in 8 months. She blamed me. I didn't care. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vengeful. I just learned the value of choosing who stays in your life. Success didn't change me. It just showed who never truly knew me. Now I don't enter my hotels unnoticed anymore. I walk in with quiet confidence. Not because they finally saw me, but because I never needed them to. I saw myself all along.